And welcome to what will likely be the most instantly dated episode of the Oddity Archive. Now, I've been getting asked a lot all year by our viewers about what I think the next generation of oddities will be, and it got me thinking of this self proclaimed seer who used to appear on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson back in the 60s. And this guy called himself the Amazing Griswell. You may have heard of him. And on at least one occasion, he appeared on Carson on New Year's Eve to give his predictions for the new year. Now, normally I wouldn't even entertain the notion of doing a New Year's special for Archive because, well, I like to take a little time off around the holidays, to be perfectly frank, but it just all fit together so nicely that I just had to bring out the box one last time this year and give you what I think the next generation of oddities will be. Now, before we get started, I do want to note here that this is Oddity Archive, and we're very AV centric around here. We're all about media. But in the last decade, if not more, it's gotten to a point in technology where it's become a very fine line between AV gear and just basic gadgetry. And so, with that in mind, I decided I'm just going to throw the rulebook out on this one and just give 5 pieces of technology in general that I don't really foresee catching on. And so, enough my yakking. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present my top 5 predictions of future oddities. Number 5, the Pono. I love Neil Young as a musician. As an inventor, let's just say his ideas have been slightly impractical. I mean, this is the guy who helped spearhead a kit to turn his 1959 Lincoln Continental into a zero emissions electric car. Yeah, maybe if we can ever make a battery that efficient and invent an on the fly recharge while we're at it. And I'm sure a huge solar panel on a 1959 Continental won't be difficult, or dangerous, or awkward. But I digress. The item that Young has gotten the most press for would be for his Pono lossless music player. As something of a music/audio geek myself, the notion of a, generically speaking, MP3 player that plays uncompressed, high resolution files is pretty damn enticing, especially as someone who's not really a fan of the standard fare maximum 320 kilobits per second MP3 format. On the plus side, the Pono has 128 gigabytes of potential storage, which is more than anything else on the market as of December 2014. It has 2 headphone jacks and a balanced output mode for high-end professional gear, and that's about it. 64 gigabytes of your storage has to be achieved via an SD card. There is no video support. The Pono software, a la iTunes, is only available as of right now with the purchase of the player. The player itself is shaped like a Toblerone bar and is nearly as big, making for an awkward thing to carry in your pocket. Also, as of this recording, there is no protective gear for this device available. And while the ability to play files of up to 24-bit 192 kHz resolution is nice, the odds that you will find anything in such a high resolution is slim. Indeed, a file that can carry audio frequencies up to 96 kHz is nice, but humans can rarely hear above 20 kHz anyway, and music releases proper with anything higher than that frequency are very rare. Oh yeah, and the music from the Pono store appears to be just straight rips from the CD issues of albums, so there's apparently little to nothing to be gained sonically there either. And then there's that pesky fact that the frequency response in playback is only as good as the headphones or speakers you're using to listen with, and the fact that a lot of quality has to do with the original recording and mastering jobs on the records anyway. To boot, more recent Apple products can handle standard CD quality WAV files as well, so the ability for, limited at least, uncompressed playback is already there. Last word, I do hope there's an audio nerd mobile device of some sort in the future, but this ain't it.
And disconnect your Pono player. You're now ready to enjoy your files.
Number 4. The log bar ring. And the award for biggest solution to the least problem goes to this thing. This is called the log bar ring, as I said, and its purpose is to allow you to control your smartphone, iPhone, or Droid with hand gestures, so long as you don't mind looking like you had a mishap with a plumbing apparatus at all times. The ring itself contains a Bluetooth-like interface that communicates with your phone as a means of doing most of the things on your phone, which is likely already in your pocket. Lazy. Anyway, this project was funded via Kickstarter earlier this year, and the first units were sent out in November. As of this recording, December 2014, the ring itself costs $269. To add insult to injury, this review clip that you're seeing here claims that the success rate of your intended gesture is about 10%. Not very promising. So let me get this straight. You already have a smartphone that is capable of phone usage, text communication, audio playback and recording, video playback and recording, taking and viewing still pictures, near complete internet access, taking or making credit card payments, taking or making bank transfers, GPS use, remotely accessing some security systems and thermostats, using as a remote control for set-top boxes and some TVs and stereo systems, basic word processing, and most importantly, to play cheesy video games on. Just take your damn phone out of your pocket and use it, you lazy asshole.
So I thought, well, on Android it has to be better, right? No, not at all.
Number 3. Amazon.com drone delivery. So nowadays we have flying, obviously, drones that you, the average Joe, can use primarily for aerial photography, which can also be used for more nefarious purposes. But anyway, Amazon.com has been wanting to use a variation on these drones as a means of expedited delivery of stuff purchased from their website. Unsurprisingly, the FAA and, to a lesser degree, the FCC aren't too enthused about these things, and neither am I. Here are 4, I think, very good reasons why this is a bad idea. Guns, bow and arrows, slingshots, and rocks. Although I guess you could tie the last 2 together. Anyway, let's face it, good idea or not, if we had these things flying around, you know damn well every redneck, petty thief, wannabe activist, wannabe terrorist, and just all-around bored idiots are going to be using these drones for, at best, a means of stealing merchandise, and at worst, target practice. The last thing we need is some innocent bystander getting shot because someone wanted a toaster rush delivered. Number 2. The iWatch. This is another one that hasn't yet been released as of this video. The idea is that your wristwatch is so totally obsolete because, simply telling the current time is so 20th century, man. The iWatch appears to be a tiny iPad or iPhone that you can use to keep track of current happenings and a couple other little things, starting at about $350, or so it's predicted. Actually, let me amend my earlier statement. You need an iPhone for this thing to keep connected with. Even though I've evolved, or devolved depending on your perspective, into primarily a Mac user and have an iPad and iPod to boot, I'm apparently not a very good Mac snob because, I'm sorry, the iWatch just seems totally redundant. To add insult to injury, the iWatch just appears to be yet another device that you would have to constantly worry about keeping charged or accidentally setting off. And I know as someone who's spent his adult life working with his hands, and getting them torn up quite frequently, I would be so paranoid about getting this thing damaged, if not broken, that it would likely never get worn much anyway. Well, that, and given the tiny screen size, I'd probably have to squint pretty hard to read anything but the time. Again, as I implied, if you already have a smartphone and or tablet, this looks like a 100% redundancy. And my number one pick for future oddity status is Google Glass. As far as I'm concerned, the entire Google X, as its known wing of Google, is an oddity waiting to happen. I mean, they've already got such safe, practical ideas as Project Wing, another potential delivery by drone system, and the self-driving car. However, the winner, or loser as it were, of this lot for me personally would have to be Google Glass. Starting at the low price of $1,500, plus a necessary $40 a month data plan, you can have the ultimate pair of nerd glasses. Extra heavy. Where to begin? Google Glass can launch some serious privacy issues. For one, no one knows if you're recording or not. The battery life, according to reviews I've read, maxes out at about 5 hours and can be as short as 45 minutes if you actually have the audacity to try and use the features. Also, be prepared for a roughly 10-minute reboot to get the glasses started again after having them off. There are few options for use. In other words, you can look up the current weather conditions and record some stuff, and that's about it. The operating system is, unsurprisingly, voice-activated, which I personally hate. Eye strain is an unsurprising, pretty widely reported problem. Again, go look up some full reviews. The glasses themselves cannot be folded like regular ones, are prone to damage, and not to mention are at the mercy of the weather if you're outdoors. If you require prescription lenses, be prepared to spend an extra $500 or more, and to add further insult to injury, the frames, unlike most regular ones, are barely adjustable. In a nutshell, it's an impractical, costly, prohibitive solution to a whole set of problems that barely exist. Well, that's it for today's archive. Join me next time when I'm forced into hiding because I managed to piss off all the world's tech geek dilettantes. Happy New Year, gang.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne?
Even worse than the hardware. It doesn't ever register, the commands that you're doing.